When you want straight lines in quilting like this crosshatch here, you are going to have to start with a straight line, and then all the others need to be straight alongside with it. But how do you do that? Easy peasy when you know how. What you're going to need is a walking foot. Of course, you've got one of those. You are going to need a guide to go with your walking foot, and you're going to need, no, hold on a minute, you're going to need my secret weapon. I'm going to show you that in just a second. Keep you in suspense. Who am I? I am Kim, and this is Quilt with Kim. You, my lovely, are very welcome. Let's find out what my secret weapon is. And my secret weapon is hiding under here. Can you guess what it is? It is some masking tape or painter's tape. It depends on where you are in the world, but this is the tape that we use when we are painting window frames and the like, and we want to stick that on our glass to stop the paint going on the glass. This is not a DIY channel. I am not about to teach you how to paint. You probably don't want that anyway. But we can use it in our sewing room. In fact, get yourself a roll of this because it is really useful for just all manner of stuff, including marking out your seam allowances on your base plate. However, I digress. So here I have my quilt top ready to be quilted, and this little trick works on any size of quilt. I've used it on massive quilts, I've used it on small quilts, but we have to start with one straight line, and this is what we use to get our straight line. Once we've got our first straight line, then our walking foot and the guide can take over. I will show you that in a second, but we have to get our first straight line. Now, first up, the first rule in quilting is we always start from the middle of our quilt, and that is because if we started from the edges and quilted in, we would get all the little wrinkles caught in the middle. But we want our wrinkles and our puckers to all fall off the edge on our sewing room floor, then we can hoover them up afterwards. Yeah, I know, just indulge me. So we're always going to start in the middle, and this is where our masking tape comes in, because we know where our middle is because we've got two, whoops, you can't see, sorry, we've got two corners. Okay, let's just say we're going diagonal corners. It will work the same if you're going straight as well, but I'm just going to go diagonal, and we're going to get our masking tape and we're going to stick it on the top corner of our quilt here, just to the right of our first corner, just there. Let me bring that right up close so that you can see where it is. The reason why I don't go right on the corner is because we need to have room for the needle to go. All right, but it is just literally a whisker to the right. Is not very far away at all. I don't know how far you can see that. Anyway, so we're just on that corner there, so the thread can run down here. Then we're going to, so it's stuck up stuck up on the left, and then we're going to hold and pull, so we stick it to the bottom right hand corner in my instance here. And same thing again, so we want to make sure that it is actually flat, because sometimes it will pull. If you've got somebody else to help you to hold the top edge whilst you're pulling it down to the bottom edge, that will help you. But we want that nice and flat, and it can stick on the wadding or the batting, that's absolutely fine. You just want to make sure that that is sitting flat from top left hand corner to bottom right hand corner. And having done that, now we can get it under the machine. By the way, this will not ruin your quilt. It's not going to be on there for very long. This, I know you can get quilters low tack tape. This isn't. This is just normal bog standard everyday masking tape or painter's tape that you can get from a DIY store. There's nothing fancy about it at all. In fact, I think I stole this from the garage. Don't tell Nige, our secret. So you don't need to especially get the low tack tape if you don't want to. If you've got some of this kicking around, that will do exactly the same thing. And in fact, because it's quite wide, this is about 1 inch wide, you've got a goodly amount to to stick down and stay in place. Anyway, having done that, let's get our machine out and I'll show you how to get the first stitch and then the next stitch, and then you'll be off to the races. How we're going to start then is by stitching down the edge, the left-hand edge of our masking tape here. So I've got my walking foot on, that's ready to go, and it's all threaded up with my quilting thread, and I've got my quilting needle in. Now you can see here just a couple of tips on our walking foot. On my one, let's just see if I can move that in. I've got a little red mark in the middle of the walking foot. Not all walking feet have it, but if yours has that, use that as a little guide. And you can see that that little red line is just to the left of my masking tape or my painter's tape, and that's where my stitch line is going to be. Okay, so let's stop holding the camera because that's making it go all wibbly wobbly. And we don't want wibbly wobbly. All right, so I'm just get my thread underneath my foot. I'm going to start in on the wadding. My needle is in the central position because that'll make it easier for you. If I'm going to have my little red line on the edge of my masking tape, I want the needle in the same position, which is in the center. Now, if you happen to have a computerized machine, if you put your stitch width to 3.5, you'll probably find that your needle ends up in the middle position. So test it out and see. My stitch length for quilting is at 3.5 on this particular machine. I would say 3 to 4 is where you need to be. So either 3.0, 3.5 or 4. My preferred length is 3.5, so you need to be around there because you've got the extra thickness of your quilt layers to go through. Okay, so that's getting the machine set up. I want to get my my walking foot down, as I said, with that little red mark just on the edge of my masking tape. And then what I want to do before we go any further is using the hand wheel, which is that wheel on the right hand side of your machine. I want to slowly lower my needle, but I don't want to go into my wadding or my batting. It's the same thing, by the way. I don't want to go into it. What I want to do is make sure that my needle is just to the left of my masking tape. And I know I haven't started stitching yet, so just bear with these little tips because it really helps if you can make sure that your needle is in the right place before you start stitching, because once we've started stitching, we don't really want to stitch our masking tape down. Does it matter if you do? No, not really. It won't harm anything, but we're aiming for a straight line. If you do stitch onto your masking tape, it will just peel off afterwards. So don't worry about that. It just tears off easily. But we're aiming for our straight line. So the more little adjustments that you can get in place right now, the better it is for you as we stitch down. So if I am happy that my needle is in the right position, in the right position. I haven't been drinking, I promise. My needle is in the right position just to the left of my masking tape, then I am good to go. And let me just peer down. Yes, that's in the right place. So I'm going to drop my needle. I'm starting on the wadding, which is your normal rule for your quilting, and then we're going to go at a nice slow steady speed, and we're going to follow down the edge of this masking tape. So I'll get going and then I'll speed the camera up and then we'll go on to the next bit. Okay, so we're right on the edge of that masking tape. And what I'm doing is being very careful that I'm keeping literally just to the left of that masking tape there. So I'm not on the masking tape, I'm just to the left. Okay, let's finish this line. And I have finished on the wadding. I'm going to cheat and just cut my threads. Don't tell anybody. Oops, yeah, that didn't cut at all. Sometimes that happens and it's always on camera. So let me just reposition everything so that I can show you what to do next. Okay, that's off the machine. All I'm going to do is take off this masking tape or your painter's tape, what I would do is keep that, just stick it somewhere safe, because when you come to do the other side and you go the other way, if you're doing a crosshatch, you'll want to do the same thing, and we can obviously use our masking tape to do that. So I'm just going to stick that over there on the wall. And now we've got our first nice straight quilt line, as if by magic, which is tick 1 on our list of things we need to do. How do we start our cross-hatching or our straight lines with our first straight line? That's how you do that. But how do we get the next straight lines? Well, that's where your guide comes in, which goes on your walking foot. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do this, but the guide then runs down that line. Okay, let me explain. If you look at your walking feet, okay, this is a brother walking foot. I have no idea why it doesn't have the signature, the brother logo on the side, but it is a brother walking foot. On your walking feet, on this particular one, it's got a hole, and the guide goes through the hole. If you've got, it depends on your machine. Genomes, I know, have a little clip that the bar clips down, and you have to give it a good press to get it in there, but it will clip into place. And what you'll probably find is that the shape of it comes round in a sort of slight little J shape, or there's a little hole bit at the bottom where that fits into. So we're going to put our guide into place. Now, the next bit is how far away should this be? It's kind of up to you, really. I like about 1.5 inches for a crosshatch, but honestly, it depends how far away your lines are from each other. It depends on the design that you want to do for your quilting. But let's just say it is that far away. I don't know how far that far away is. That's probably about 1.5 inches. So it would be from the needle, which is in the central position, to where that guide is. And the idea is as we stitch our line down, so the needle will be going through our walking foot, we are keeping this guide on our first quilting line, and then we'll get a second line going down there. So let me put this on the machine, and I'll get this underneath the machine, and then I'll show you exactly how to do that. I'll also show you how to do the other way as well, because that can do your head in sometimes. So let's get back on the machine. My guide is now in place. I'll fix that in the hole in my walking foot, which I appreciate you can't see, but I can't get my camera in at all angles. We need to get our quilt underneath. So our walking foot is currently in the raised up position. That's not very technical. You know what I mean. I need to start on the wadding or your batting. And if this is down, it's going to be difficult to get your quilt into position. So you can just lever it up just like that and get yourself into position. As long as the needle is on the wadding, it really doesn't matter where this is. But I want to make sure and make certain that my stitch line is just underneath the guide just here. And if it isn't, if you're to the left or to the right, just take put my teeth in, just take a couple of moments to make sure it's all lined up. And when it is, then you can drop your presser foot. And the idea is, once you've got it into position, once you've got that width that you want, and by the way, I measured this, this is 1.25 inches, not 1.5 inches, but what's 1/4 inch between friends, eh? Okay, so once we've got the position that we want and the distance we want, we keep it in that place, which is why when you put that guide in, you'll feel that it's quite stiff, because we don't want it moving around, because obviously that won't make a consistent gap between all of our lines. Now we've got our guide nicely in position over our stitch line, and our walking foot, the presser foot is down, and the needle is nicely over the wadding, ready to go. We can drop that needle and off we go again, and this time no masking tape, but we're stitching, keeping that guide over that line. So don't watch what your needle is doing, watch this bit here. So treat it like the edge of your fabric, or whenever you're trying to get a nice straight line, we're watching this bit going under the guide. Okay, other than that, it's exactly the same. So I haven't changed my stitch length, so all my settings are still the same, and we're going to go all the way down here. That's that line done. Let's cut the thread. Let's hope it actually cut that time. Yeah, there you go. And now you can you see I've got some nice tram lines coming down here. Can you see there? Let me just take this out from underneath the machine so you can see it properly. There we go. Right, so you can see here I've got nice straight tram lines coming all the way down my quilt. And then all I'm going to do is exactly the same again. So I haven't moved my guide. It is still in the same position. I've just lifted it up slightly to get my quilt out, and then I'll put my quilt underneath and we'll line it up exactly again to do the same thing for the next line. So let me show you that, and then I'll show you what to do to go the other way. So same thing again. I lifted that up just to get my quilt underneath. We'll drop it back down onto this stitch line now. So this is the one that we've just done. I'm going to drop my walking foot. And by the way, if you're looking at this thinking, that looks a bit curvy, she can't stitch a straight line. I can. It's actually an optical illusion because of all the pattern on here. I have actually checked because I was looking at the screen that I can see in front of me, and it does look a bit wobbly, but I promise you it is straight. Let's drop that needle and off we go again. Same thing again, we're just following this stitch line now. There we are, there is the second line going down, and then all we would do is do exactly the same thing to go all the way across. So I'm going to do that now off camera, and then I'm going to come back and show you to do this side. And from your point of view, it's coming up right now. That's all of that half done then. So you can see I've done all the lines to the corner. And this is a good tip, is don't worry about going that way for now. I'll show you that in 1 second. But we're doing one side first, one corner first. We're going from that middle out to the left. Now to do the other side, how do you do that? It's really simple. You're going to laugh when I show you. What you're going to do is turn your quilt around. Just like magic. And then we're going to do exactly the same thing going that way, because now we can put that line, our first line, underneath our quilt guide, and we'll do exactly the same thing. So our walking foot guide, and we'll do exactly the same thing going in that direction. So let's put this under the machine and I'll just show you how to start off. But you've got this, and then I'll do the rest of it, but stick around because I've got a couple of hot tips for you that you don't want to miss out on. So exactly the same way, we are putting our guide over that center line. I am dropping the foot. Always make sure that you get your guide into position first before you drop your foot, because if you need to maneuver this around to get it into position, you want your foot up so that you can position it properly. Then I'm going to drop my foot and then off I go. There's all my lines going one way, and if that's all you want to do because it's a small piece, you can leave it there. But if you're going to do cross hatching, you're going to have to do it the other way. How do we do that? We are simply going to turn it around. So I've got my top left corner and my bottom right corner. I'm going to move my machine out of the way because it's a bit in the middle here. I'm going to get my piece of masking tape and I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to stick it from that top left to the bottom right. Can you see there and here? Make sure it is stuck down properly. And then I'm going to do exactly the same thing again. So we're going to stitch down that line there, and by doing exactly the same as you did this side, you'll end up with your crosshatch, and that's simply how you're going to get your straight lines. Now, I promised you a little bit of a tip, and that is what happens when you've got a large quilt and you're stepping away because you've finished for the day and you're going to come back to it tomorrow. That's a really common issue that people are going to have. Now, a couple of things here. We want to make sure that we've taken note of our machine settings. So take a little photograph of the display or write them down so you know what your stitch width and your stitch length is going to be. Very easy to convince ourselves it was something else. So take a photo or write that down. And then the second thing is your guide, your walking foot guide should stay in position on your walking foot. But things happen, cats walk past, children walk past, there are fairies that live in sewing rooms, I'm sure there are. Then you want to measure the distance between the needle and that walking foot guide and scribble that down as well. So mine was 1.25 inches, yours would be whatever it is. And then if your guide does move overnight because the sewing fairies have moved in and moved everything about, then you'll know where you are. I mean, if all else fails, you can measure the distance between those tram lines on your quilt, and that'll tell you where to position it and get that guide into place again. The other thing as well is when you're handling a large quilt, they slip and slide. The fabric is quite slippy. Okay, I was doing this on quite a small sample piece to show you, but on a large quilt they can be difficult to handle, so you might need to get yourself a pair of these, which is a pair of quilting gloves. If you've never seen these before, or you're wondering why on earth you need them, check out the video that's coming up there, because that'll help you on that one. And all that remains to say is, if you've liked this video and it has helped, please don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that notification bell, and I will love you and leave you for now, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.